My friend dared me to ask my neighbor out. She said, "Don't waste my time." So I proved I would stay. The moment she looked at me, smiled like she already knew how this would end, and said, "Don't waste my time," something inside me refused to walk away. Before the story begins, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and proving your worth through actions, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps stories like this reach people who need them. I didn't know her name back then. To me, she was just the quiet girl next door, the one who came home late, never waved, and always carried that invisible wall around her like armor. My friend had laughed when he dared me to ask her out, treating it like a joke, like something impossible. Maybe that's why I agreed. Maybe I want to prove something. Or maybe deep down I already knew this wasn't going to be just a dare. The evening felt ordinary, but my heart didn't. I remember standing at her porch, noticing the soft golden light spilling from her window, hearing faint music from inside. It felt like stepping into someone else's world, one I wasn't invited into. When she opened the door, her expression wasn't surprised. It was tired, like she had already dealt with too many disappointments to care about another one. I stumbled through the invitation, trying to sound confident, trying not to look like someone who had no idea what he was doing. She listened quietly, arms crossed, her eyes studying me like she was measuring something deeper than my words. And then she said it. Calm, sharp, final, "Don't waste my time." It should have ended there. Most people would have smiled awkwardly, apologized, and walked away. I almost did, but something about the way she said it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like a warning, like she had been let down too many times and wasn't willing to go through it again. So instead of leaving, I nodded. Not in defeat, but in understanding. And that was the moment everything changed. The next day, I didn't show up with flowers or some grand gesture. I simply waved when she got home. She didn't wave back, but she noticed. The day after that, I helped her bring in a heavy box she was struggling with. She didn't thank me, but she didn't stop me either. And slowly, day by day, I became a quiet presence in her routine. It wasn't easy. There were days she ignored me completely, days she seemed annoyed just by my existence. My friend kept asking me why I was still trying, reminding me it was just a dare. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about proving him wrong. It became about proving her right, that someone could stay, even when it wasn't easy. I started noticing things about her. The way she always paused before unlocking her door, like she needed a moment to prepare herself. The way she preferred silence over small talk. The way her eyes softened just for a second when she thought no one was looking. She wasn't cold. She was careful. Weeks passed, and the silence between us slowly began to change. It wasn't empty anymore. It was shared. One evening, I found her sitting on the steps outside her house, staring at the sky. I sat a few feet away, not saying anything. For the first time, she didn't get up and leave. That was the first crack in her walls. Life wasn't magically better for me during this time. I was dealing with my own struggles, work that felt meaningless, nights filled with doubts about where my life was going. There were moments I questioned everything. Why was I trying so hard for someone who barely acknowledged me? Why was I investing so much in something that might never become anything? But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered the way she said those words, "Don't waste my time." And I realized she wasn't asking for perfection. She was asking for consistency, something rare, something real. One night it rained heavily, the kind of rain that makes the world feel quieter. I saw her outside, struggling with her car that wouldn't start. Without thinking, I walked over, getting soaked in the process. She looked at me like she wanted to protest, but she didn't. We stood there in the rain, working together in silence until the engine finally came to life. That night, she said her first full sentence to me. It wasn't anything dramatic. Just a quiet, almost reluctant thank you, but it meant everything. After that, things began to shift. She started leaving her door open a little longer when she got home, as if giving me a chance to say hello. She began to ask small questions about my day, about work. Nothing too personal, nothing too deep, but it was a start. And I answered honestly, never trying to impress her, never pretending to be someone I wasn't, because I realized something important. She didn't need someone extraordinary, she needed someone steady. As the days turned into months, I learned more about her story. Not all at once, not in dramatic confessions, but in small pieces. She had trusted someone once, given everything, and in return she was left with nothing but broken promises and a fear of believing again. That was why she built those walls, not to keep people out, but to protect what was left of her. And that's when my role became clear. I wasn't there to tear those walls down. I was there to show her that not everyone would hurt her. There were setbacks. Days when she pulled away again, when old fears resurfaced. Days when she seemed distant, like she was trying to convince herself that none of this mattered. Those were the hardest days for me, Because staying isn't just about being there when it's easy. It's about being there when it's not. I stayed, not with grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but with small, consistent actions. A knock on her door when I knew she hadn't eaten, a quiet presence when she didn't feel like talking, a simple smile even when she didn't return it. And slowly, something beautiful began to happen. She started to believe.